It is an unfortunate reality that due to the prevalence of eroticized abuse labeled as BDSM, those of us in the lifestyle often get a bad rap or are misidentified or misconstrued as having mental health issues or sexual health issues. In reality, there's been quite a bit of research done that reveals the exact opposite, that often BDSM players have better mental and emotional health and better relationships than their vanilla counterparts. In fact, there are major benefits to be reaped from BDSM outside of the bedroom or dungeon, and that's exactly what we're going to discuss today. Firm belief that BDSM as we've come to know it is really just a manifestation of the very, very natural power exchange dynamic of dominance and submission that I believe exists in every single relationship. Every single person is either dominant, submissive, or switch. That's just their natural personality and mode of operation. And this sentiment was confirmed by a pair of scientists who did some research in 2013, and they actually concluded that people who practice BDSM do not have a damaged psychological profile or have some sort of psychopathology or personality disorder. This actually mirrors some findings by Dr. Pamela Connolly back in 2006, where her study indicated that BDSM practitioners actually are healthier, scored better than their vanilla counterparts in 70% of mental health indicators. So, since healthy power exchange dynamics and consensual BDSM play have been scientifically proven to improve our quality of life, I decided to poll my Instagram community with this question. What is the greatest non-sexual benefit you've experienced from your BDSM play or lifestyle? Now, aside from a few hilarious gems that were submitted, I received basically 10 answers, 10 consistent answers across the board. So let's break down these top 10 answers to reveal the mental, emotional, and relational benefits you can expect from BDSM. Increased confidence and self-acceptance. Scientists Weismeyer and Assen conducted a study in 2013 which concluded that in contrast to vanilla practitioners, BDSM players experienced higher levels of extroversion, conscientiousness, openness to experience, and overall well-being, as well as lower levels of neuroticism and rejection sensitivity. And that just reinforces what my community said. They have found an increased sense of confidence and acceptance when you start digging into some of these things, some of the things that are considered taboo, when you start breaking down some of this vanilla conditioning and really start to get okay with these desires, these unspoken things that you have never shared before, there is a sense of acceptance of, you know what, I'm not judging myself, my partner's not judging me, this is a safe place. And I'm okay. I'm okay to feel these things and have these desires as long as I am a consenting adult with another consenting adult, okay? So it's okay. There's a lot of freedom to be found. There's a lot of confidence. There's a lot of self-acceptance here. Absolutely. And actually, when Weismeyer was asked why these were the findings of their research, of their studies, this is what he said. BDSM practitioners tend to be more aware of their sexual needs and desires than vanilla people, which could translate to less frustration in bed and in relationships. Coming to terms with their unusual sexual preferences and choosing to live the BDSM lifestyle may also take hard psychological work that translates to positive mental health. Next non-sexual benefit of BDSM is being cared for or protected. Now, because of such an intense mental and emotional high, which we'll talk about later, literally what happens in the brain and in the body when you engage in some great BDSM play, we have a big, big high. And because we have a high, we have a big low. We have a crash, we have a sub drop, and a dom drop can happen as well. Not as frequently discussed, but dom drop is also a thing. It does exist as well. So you have this heightened experience, these heightened emotions, and then you have to come down from them and crash from them. And that's why aftercare is such a tenet in BDSM. So if you think about it, because aftercare does have such a high level of importance in BDSM, there is this intrinsic link between sex and care in the BDSM lifestyle. We're gonna play hard, but we're gonna care just as hard as well. So there is this expectation and this standard of aftercare. You're gonna be a shit dominant if you take a sub through a really intense scene and then just leave them and give them no care, no attention, no love, none of that. And you don't help them drop, you don't help them crash, okay? So there is this link here when it comes to BDSM play. And a lot of submissives absolutely feel that way, that they feel so much more cared for and protected in their BDSM relationship or lifestyle than they ever did in a vanilla relationship, because their dominant is present, is mindful, is invested, and we have that high level of importance on aftercare when you play. Our next benefit is decreased stress and anxiety. Now, I was just talking about that drop or crash after play when all of those heightened emotions and hormones and chemicals are crashing, are coming down. Well, the scientific terms for that when it comes to dominance, dom space is called flow, and subspace, what we refer to, is called transient hypofrontality. So literally, we have some major chemical shifts happening in the brain on both the top side and the bottom side. And you dominants know what I'm referring to when I talk about dom space or flow. You have focused attention, a loss of self-consciousness, and optimal performance at your tasks. You just get in this space, get in this zone. You're not self-conscious, your words flow better, you can think clearly. That's dom space, that's flow. And for you submissives, I know how much you like subspace or transient hypofrontality, where you experience pain reduction or feelings of floating and peacefulness. You're able to be fully present. Often a lot of time distortions take place, etc. So essentially, dom space and subspace is what the Society of Personality and Social Psychology found when they did their study in 2014, which showed that practicing BDSM can alter blood flow in the brain, which can lead to an altered state of consciousness similar to a runner's high or yoga. And this just confirmed what the Journal of Scientific Medicine found in 2013 when their study revealed that BDSM practitioners consistently had lower levels of the stress hormone cortisol after engaging in their kinky activities. And do you remember the study I mentioned at the beginning with Dr. Pamela Connolly, how she confirmed that BDSM practitioners actually were mentally healthier, scored better on 70% of the mental health indicators? Well, when it comes to decreased stress and anxiety, that's precisely what she found. BDSM players were shown to have lower levels of depression, anxiety, PTSD, psychological sadism, psychological masochism, borderline pathology, and paranoia. So BDSM play can actually be incredibly soothing and peaceful and beneficial to your mental and emotional health. And that is exactly why I wrote my story this month, Catharsis. In this new erotic story, I explore the power of BDSM to provide that mental and emotional release so many of you crave. Read the story and get the tools you need to transform your play. Available now for a limited time on Patreon. Improved communication skills is another non-sexual benefit of BDSM. And those of you in the lifestyle are probably shaking your head in confirmation, because everything from start to finish, everything we do in BDSM must fall under the guidelines of SSC. That's usually the most common one. Again, I'm planning on doing a breakdown of the biggest tenets of consent in BDSM, but the most well-known one is SSC, safe, sane, consensual. So every act that takes place within BDSM must be safe, must be sane, must be consensual. So we have to talk about everything before we consent to it. You cannot consent to something you don't know, right? Okay, so we have to talk about everything. Communication is the forefront of everything. It's the foundation. We don't play until we talk. And often in vanilla situations, especially in hookup culture, it's the exact opposite. We may fuck, and then if I like you enough, I might have a conversation with you. It is the exact opposite in BDSM. There must be that safety and trust built before we play, and that requires communication. So often players and couples have a very strong sense of communication and a very strong emphasis on the need for communication in their play and in their relationship. In fact, Dr. Jeffrey Sumber found that BDSM-friendly couples require impeccable communication, whereas many mainstream relationships communicate about their sexuality as a result of inflammation or challenges that arise. For a BDSM relationship to thrive, it must rely on a foundation of transparency and effective interaction. Now, I just discussed briefly SSC, safe, sane, consensual, how every act in BDSM must be done safely, sanely, and with utmost consent. Well, due to this extreme emphasis on safety and consent and sanity, okay, couples and players often just naturally follow the flow of intimacy that I've discussed with you before. Safety, trust, vulnerability, and then intimacy. See, like I was just saying, in our vanilla hookup culture that's just honestly really shallow and disgusting, and a lot of you are incredibly unfulfilled, okay? It's backwards. And so we want intimacy, but we don't build safety, trust, and then we think fucking is vulnerability, but really it's not, because we haven't actually revealed anything to this person. Remember that whole no communication thing? So it's exactly the opposite in BDSM. We often follow that flow of intimacy just because BDSM demands trust. I'm sorry, if you are going to be bound and gagged and have your ass beat, you better know your partner well enough to trust them and be able to give your enthusiastic consent. So by engaging in these acts that require such extreme levels of safety and trust, we thereby produce extreme levels of vulnerability and intimacy. Self-improvement was another stated benefit of BDSM. Now, the answers that came in on this were quite varied, but they all shared that same theme: self-improvement. I either learned how to stand up for myself better, or I learned better manners, or I learned better domestic skills, how to cook, how to clean. I've learned better self-care. I now have a better diet, a more consistent exercise routine. I now have the motivation to go back to school, get a degree, study harder, work harder, etc. There is this motivation that takes place in the care of a good dominant, that it motivates you to be better, to push harder. So often dominants that are already natural leaders and planners, etc., become more focused and more disciplined because they have now someone looking up to them and relying on them. Whereas submissives, they get this new sense of empowerment and therefore a sense of responsibility over themselves and over their lives. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. So self-improvement is a huge non-sexual benefit of BDSM. Another BDSM benefit is mutual respect. Now, this is probably one of my favorite aspects about this lifestyle, is there is this sense of respect for dominance in the community, good dominance in the community. And there is a sense of respect for submissives as well. It's different. It's not an authoritative respect, but it is a, hey, you deserve to be treated with a certain level of basic respect and human decency, right? So we automatically have just this kind of air and this energy in the lifestyle. But beyond that, through daily protocols or consistent protocols within your power exchange dynamic, there's often an increased sense of mindfulness and manners. If you know that you will receive punishment or discipline for not maintaining a sense of propriety or protocol or manners, whatever, that does something to how you think about things, how you think about yourself, how you think about your partner, how you think about your relationship. You're often more grounded, more mindful. You say please and thank you, yes sir, yes ma'am, etc. So there's just this beautiful sense of respect due to the amount of manners that are often infused with these protocols. Another BDSM benefit is a sense of safety. Now we have that tenet in BDSM of safety, SSC. Everything that takes place within your BDSM play or lifestyle must be done with the utmost safety, sanity, and consent. So safety is key, and it's often highly respected. But the safety transcends often into an emotional safety and a relational safety as well, where you have such high levels of trust, you have such high levels of investment that are going into this. You're talking to each other constantly, you're learning about each other constantly, you're mindful, you're following these protocols, all these things. There is active work and investment. And you know what? Relationships are work. And if you think otherwise, you have been just sadly misinformed, child. Relationships are work. Anything in life worth having requires work. So your relationship, your precious, erotic, beautiful BDSM relationship will also require work. And it's often because of this work, because of this energy, because of this investment, that it infuses a sense of relational safety, that I am yours, you are mine, I'm not going anywhere, and neither are you. Dr. Jeffrey Sumber put it this way, that a DS dynamic can actually dissuade many people from cheating or acting out of integrity because of the energy, emotional space, and trust both partners put into the relationship. Many who take it seriously are not interested in sabotaging the safety and trust that is imperative to its success. I don't know if this boy is a kinkster or not, but he gets it. The safety and trust that is imperative to its success. When you are investing such high degrees of safety and trust, you just simply don't want to look elsewhere, act elsewhere. Plus, you probably have a red hot connection. So again, you're just fusing that sense of safety in your relationship. Asha Gray puts it, kink is not therapy or a replacement for therapy, but some trauma survivors have found their own empowerment via kink. As the bottom in a planned kink scene, you're in charge from the beginning to the end, so you can re-experience what you went through, but in a safer and more pleasurable way. And I very much agree with that assessment as well, that BDSM is not for everyone, and certain types of scenes are not for everyone, and that's okay. There's no judgment if you're vanilla. There's no judgment if you're into some really what would be considered extreme things. To each his own. It's all incredibly, incredibly organic. But for some kinksters who have had past trauma, this can be an incredibly empowering way to heal, because you do have the power of your safe word. You do have the power to retract your consent, so you could possibly be led through or guide a service top through an experience that would help you heal, where you could relive it and take some power back and walk away from it feeling re-empowered instead of disempowered. And finally, freedom is a big BDSM benefit. And everyone identifies and experiences this freedom in a different way in their BDSM lifestyle or play. But for me personally, and for honestly many of you who I've spoken with, this freedom not only is sexual, of getting to explore hidden things, repressed things, secret desires, etc., but this freedom transcends into a relational freedom, just a lot of expression in your relationship, a lot of expression and freedom in yourself, a lot of freedom in that confidence that we talked about, where you're no longer feeling as timid or as shy or as in your head, and there's a bigger freedom to express yourself. There's freedom to create. You're in this really creative space again, free of old patterns. You're free of old ways of thinking, old ways of relating, identifying, responding. You're free. You feel free of everything that has bogged you down or limited you in the past. And the Journal of Scientific Medicine even confirmed this in 2013 when they found that BDSM practitioners were less neurotic, more open, and had a better sense of overall well-being in contrast to their vanilla counterparts. So for those of you curious kinksters or navigating newbies, just know that your BDSM experience can serve you outside of the playroom, outside of the bedroom, and you can actually reap some beautiful mental, emotional, and relational benefits from BDSM. If you want the tools and inspiration to transform your BDSM play and power exchange dynamic so you can experience these benefits for yourself, just head over to my Patreon and choose a tier that works for you.